This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. One thing I noticed about Nicolas Winding Refn films is that the characters always reveal their most important qualities through their hands. Sometimes they'll elaborate the scene with matching gestures, and at other times an entire theme by alternating between opposing shapes. And if a film revolves around superficial beauty, they'll be hidden from view altogether. But what use is a hand shot when you can simply let the characters speak their minds?
That's a really good question.
You may have heard the phrase, conflict creates tension. Every narrative film has some form of a conflict because without conflict, there is no story. It can be something as grand as saving the universe or as trivial as going to a burger place. As long as a character wants something, that's a conflict. But tension is not an event. It's an emotional strain that desires to be relieved, which means it cannot be built if the conflict isn't consequential. So while conflict can generate tension, it doesn't guarantee it. To make conflict consequential, you usually need three things: stakes, urgency, and connection. You need high stakes to increase the risk involved in the conflict, urgency to prioritize it, and connection to make it personal. After all, no matter how substantial the problem, if you don't care for the character facing it, tension cannot arise. But connection also implies full understanding of a character, their strength, flaws, goals, and motivation, qualities that must be felt, not described, which is where the handshots come in. Moving the focus away from a character's eyes or the mouth and toward the hands can add depth to the scene by conveying a more nuanced emotional undertone, as well as forcing significance in every shot composition and movement, since the camera must talk in place of the character. This means that if done well, the handshots are capable of connecting the audience with the character, which could increase the sense of immersion to help build meaningful tension. And a film by Refn that makes the best use of this technique is his 2005 crime thriller, Pusher 3. Take a look at how the film opens up. It starts with a shot of someone's feet, moves up to their face, and ends on the hands. Same goes for the next scene. You see a character's hands, then their face, another pair of hands, then the face, hands, face, back to hands, back to face. You get the drill. While the camera work remains mostly unpredictable and spontaneous, it always makes sure to connect the face to the hands. In the opening, it introduces the leading character, Milo, and in subsequent scenes, it signals his state of mind, a wish for connection, lack of connection, desire, hostility, and even false promise. But as mentioned, the camera must be an active participant, which is why most scenes in Pusher 3 lack a linear axis of action, allowing the camera to roam freely around the setting. Specifically, Refn uses lots of handheld arc shots to visually reflect Milo's stress and inner turbulence, and otherwise keeps every move as organic as possible by having the camera react to the scene as it unfolds. You will see the camera often struggling to follow the action on time, stumbling upon key events, and even making its own predictions.
Bingo, huh? Bingo.
I've talked about freeform shooting and its effects in my Lars von Trier video, so refer to that if you want to know more, but it essentially makes the film feel more realistic and present, which naturally helps with the vicarious experience of an anxious mind, aka connection. But what about the stakes, or urgency? What else could the film do to stand above other works when it's exhausted such a huge part of its visual experience into establishing an emotional connection? Well, Counterbalance. Firstly, raising the stakes is about the quality of the conflict, not the visual world surrounding it. So camera work isn't much of an issue, as most of the time all that is needed is a narratively fitting problem that properly conveys the involved risk of failure. But Pusher 3 is not a regular film. It is so jam-packed with visually confusing camera work that adding problems without some form of a counterbalance could potentially wear out the viewers and tune them out of the film altogether. This is why Refn goes a step further and introduces new problems on top of the previous ones that haven't even been resolved, which is completely counterintuitive, except he also limits the setting variation. There are 4 major settings in Pusher 3: the NA meeting, Milo's club, Luan's base, and the restaurant. And every time Milo returns to one of these locations, he has a new problem on his shoulders. Mind you, these settings are extremely confined and would usually be treated as a specific location within a setting. not the setting. Also, by measure, I mean these locations are revisited every couple minutes, which is insane given that the film takes place over a single day. By keeping the settings visually identical but tonally transformed, the film is able to separate the conflict and highlight its consequences, all the while preventing overstimulation. Now, that is not to say that sensory overload is an objectively negative trait. Even in Pusher 3, overstimulation functions as a spokesman that reiterates the urgency of the matters at hand, but it is only after the stakes have been clearly communicated that the film gets exponentially chaotic. Visually, there is the constant setting shift that overwhelms the eyes. This is achieved by assigning time constraints to every new conflict, prompting Milo to hop between the limited settings more frequently. On top of this are a multitude of other audiovisual disturbances that forbid Milo from taking even a second of a break. He will always be surrounded by people, with new faces entering the scene to interrupt, pressure, or create new problems. Even when he's alone, there will be knocks, calls, and buzzes that break the silence and demand him action. It's honestly downright cruel that the only two instances where Milo is free from all interruptions are at the very moments he desperately needs someone by his side. The first time this happens is when Milo relapses. Up until this point, most of Pusher 3's tension was built around Milo's personal struggles. His wish to become a better father, to reconnect with his daughter, compelling him to steer clear of drug use. This internal conflict is materialized on screen in forms of his withdrawal symptoms, crushing headaches, anxiety, and confusion, which never subside despite his best efforts. The fellow recovering addicts may respect and encourage Milo's journey, but it is impossible for him to open up and form significant bonds, as he subjectively finds himself too different. Again, this is why Milo's hands are always isolated and reserved when he is at the meetings. Instead, Milo actively reaches out to people that do not care for his well-being. Gangsters, drug dealers, and irrelevant acquaintances are met with handshakes, embraces, and general physical intimacy, but none of them are actually reciprocal. Unlike the people from NA who were emotionally in tune but residing in different worlds, his coworkers are only physically present. If anything, the emotional disconnection they exert on Milo are far more damaging.
Du venter over I klubben, og jeg kommer over til dig med et par timer.
Milo's visual gesture is therefore repeatedly countered, with his partners mocking his resolution and exploiting his resources, as well as with language barriers and generation gap that further threaten his longevity as a drug lord. Even Radovan, Milo's longtime partner and a wingman, is now dissociated from the underworld lifestyle. And while he does help Milo out one final time, their reunion likewise is but a foreshadowing or re-emphasis on Milo's inescapable alienation. The second and last time Milo finds himself alone is at the very end of the film, where he blankly stares at an empty pool outside his daughter's residence. Also note that this is the only time in the film that a cross dissolve is used to transition the scene, thematically linking the two events. As it was with Radovan, Milo's brief interaction with Milena indicates a mental farewell. They do not connect. The long night has finally passed, and so have his immediate adversaries, but what good is stopping the alarm when the entire house is on fire? Luan will seek revenge for his murdered men, and the police will hunt him down for Muhammad's disappearance. Like the empty pool, Milo is left with nothing in his hands except a burning cigarette. The silence in the two scenes therefore do not imply peace. They only accent Milo's loneliness and his inevitable demise. By the time film gets to its closing shot, the audience is able to vividly perceive Milo's agony, his acknowledgement and acceptance of unavoidable downfall. With a persisting sense of foreboding, the screen fades to black and credits roll. And the audience cannot let go because they know Milo will never be free no matter what. Now that's how you build tension. Hello everyone, thank you very much for watching till the end. Refn's Pusher trilogy is one of my all-time favorite crime series or series in general. And so making this video was an incredibly meaningful but also nerve-wracking task. So again, thank you for watching. Usually as I'm writing my script, I like to watch films that are similar in nature to the one I'm covering, and there's no better place to find such works than on Mubi, the sponsor for today's video. Mubi is an online curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe, ranging from works of iconic directors to emerging auteurs. And since every film is handpicked, it's a great way to watch films you already love and also discover new films you've never seen before. For this particular video, I found and rewatched S. Craig Zahler's Brawl in Cell Block 99 from Mubi's library. An overall very different film, but it shares a distinctively rugged tone that you can find from Refn's earlier works, which ultimately helped open my eyes to Pusher's many visual details. So if you're in Canada like I am and wish to check out Zahler's bloody neo-noir action thriller, or many other wonderful works from Mubi's library, head over to my link at mubi.com/Spikima to try Mubi free for 30 days. That's mubi.com/Spikima. So go check it out, and I'll see you in the next one.